Father, we thank you for this beautiful Sabbath morning. We thank you for your love. We thank you for your gift of your Son and for the salvation that we have assured. As we tackle this complicated chapter this morning, we ask for your blessing and guidance. Help us to leave class today learning something new that we can apply in our lives. Ask this all, and please be with the prayer requests that were referenced. We ask this all in your name. Amen. All right. So this is our topic today. And this is the way Ranko Stefanovic outlined it in his commentary. Oops. The plain revelation. And you got to hit the red button. There we go. This is the outline of our lesson today. And we're going to do these sections one at a time. First one, Satan's attempt to destroy Christ on earth. And Kelly's going to read this section for us nice and loud so it can be heard online.
Whole thing?
Yeah, whole thing.
Then I witnessed in heaven an event of great significance. I saw a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon beneath her feet and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant. She cried out because of her labor pains and the agony of giving birth. Don't let that worry you. Sorry about that.
That was good. That was good.
Then I witnessed in heaven another significant event. I saw a large dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns with 7 crowns on his head. His tail swept away 1/3 of the stars in the sky, and he threw them to the earth. He stood in front of the woman as she was about to give birth, ready to devour her baby as soon as it was born. She gave birth to a son who was to rule all nations with an iron rod, and her child was snatched away from the dragon and was caught up to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness where God had prepared a place to care for her for 1,260 days.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. So that's our passage for today. And there are 3 main characters that we just read about in these first 6 verses. And the woman, a dragon, and a son. Or pictorially, look at it this way: woman, the dragon, and the child. First, let's talk about the woman first. By the way, one thing at the top, it said, I witnessed an event in heaven. Witness in heaven, an event of great significance. Verse 1, chapter 12, verse 1. Where is that heaven? Is that the place where God dwells? Earth. Uriah Smith says it was in the area above the earth where the sun, moon, and stars reside. We say, look at that event in the heavens. If this would be clear if it said, I witnessed in the heavens an event of great significance. This isn't talking about the throne of God. Okay, the woman. So as the text said, she was pregnant. She cried out because of her labor pains and the agony of giving birth. What is that a reference to? What from the Old Testament is that a reference to? Genesis 3. Genesis 3 verses 14 to 16 say this. This was after man's fall. Then the Lord said to the serpent, who is one of the characters in our story this morning, because you have done this, you are cursed more than all animals, domestic and wild. You will crawl on your belly, groveling in the dust as long as you live. And I will cause hostility, or some of the older versions say enmity. I will cause enmity between you, the devil, the serpent, and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will strike your head. That would be Christ striking the dragon's head, the serpent's head, and you will strike his heel. And then he said to the woman, I will sharpen the pain of your pregnancy, and in pain you will give birth. That sit with all you ladies.
Epidural.
Yeah, Loretta didn't care about the obstetrician. It was the anesthesiologist and the epiduralist he was waiting for. What does the word enmity mean? Deep-seated hatred, often mutual hatred, a feeling or a state. This is dictionary definition: a feeling or a state of animosity. So there was hatred between the devil. And this is a wider out of the 12 stars standing on what? The moon. And being accosted by the dragon. Star, the crown of 12 stars there on her head. Who does the woman represent? Which church? God's church. So are there two God's churches in the history of man? Thinking of a Mosaic dispensation, the Old Testament, the Old Covenant Church of Israel in the Old Testament. And then when Christ came, he said, "A new covenant I give you." So we went into a Christian dispensation, and as the commentaries call it. And so that's where we are today. We're in that phase of Franco Stefanovic says in his commentary, the 12 stars on her head stand for the 12 tribes of Israel, the Old Testament church, as well as the 12 apostles, the New Testament church. And then the travailing woman enduring the pangs of giving birth is an allusion to Genesis 3:15, which we just read.
Right.
Please.
Why do we deduct so right away that the woman is the church? Where did that start? It was century or what? Or what? Right.
I don't know. There's just legends in the room. I don't know.
So we just accept it.
Please, Terry.
Basically, the whole Bible is talking about God is looking for a faithful and intimate wife, spiritually. And in the books of Isaiah, it talks about how he took Israel as a baby cast in the field, nurtured the baby till she became the age of marriage, and then he married her. So throughout the Old Testament, Israel with his wife, when she commits spiritual adultery with idolaters, on and on and on. He forgives her. She says, "I won't do it again." She does it again. And you come to the time where the veil is ripped. Prior to that, Jesus said in the temple, "Your house is left unto you desolate." That's a divorce proclamation. The house.
Yeah.
And Paul talks about church as the new bride. I'm going to present you as a chaste virgin. And then we have, when Jesus comes, the wedding of what? The wedding feast, the new bride. So woman is always his spiritual bride. It's just that it was the nation of Israel. There was a divorce between the nation of Israel and God. Now it's the church, which is made up of the Jew first and also the Gentile.
Good. Nicely put.
It's also the context, because we know the Son is Christ. So who would Christ come from? It would be from God's people.
Okay.
So if the woman is giving birth, I agree that there's a lot of symbolism of the woman as the church, the bride.
Some of the commentary I read this week referred to what Terry just talked about in Isaiah. Was a little deep for me. So all right. The dragon.
Let me just do a PS, because this is the Adventist basic background audience.
Basic.
The patience of the saints here, those who do what? Two things.
Keep the commandments of God and have the testimony.
Testimony of Jesus. Yeah. Adventists have interpreted that in different ways, including something to do with LMI too. But I think it's really saying God is looking for a bride that is rams of God that can be trusted. Secondly, it has the testimony of Jesus, which has the intimacy relationship. A wife that is only to be trusted but not intimate is not a good marriage. Wife that is very intimate but can't control herself is not a good marriage. So I think there is the wedding terminology. He is looking for a bride that first he can trust, and also he will be living with forever.
Agreed. Yeah,
Shangri-La, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who's the dragon? Satan. Right? Elmer and I were playing golf yesterday, and Elmer said, how come all these beasts in Revelation are so gory and have multiple heads and horns and stuff? And I said, that's a good question. And I found something that yesterday afternoon in Barclay's commentary that kind of speaks to that. It's a little, well, here it is. Here we have a picture of a great flame-colored dragon. In our study of the antecedents of Antichrist, we saw that the Eastern peoples regarded creation in the light of a struggle between the dragon of chaos and the creating god of order. In the temple of Marduk, the creating god in Babylon, there was a great image of a red gleaming serpent that stood for the defeated dragon of chaos. There can be little doubt that this is where John got his picture. The dragon appears in many forms in the Old Testament. So we concluded on the golf course that a lot of it was imagery that was understood or common to first century world, and to us they sound crazy, but in their sphere where they worship. Here's another picture of my son. So the dragon, we'll come to it in a minute, but here's something from Uriah Smith. Having now ascended with having now ascertained who the man-child was, namely Christ, and having fixed the chronology of the prophecy, which we're going to do in just a minute, he was born into the world. It would be easy to find the power symbolized by the dragon, for the dragon represents some power which did attempt to destroy him at his birth. Now, who was that?
Satan.
Satan working through Herod, who was a Roman governor. For Herod derived his power from Rome. Rome ruled the power world at that time and was therefore the responsible party in this transaction. Moreover, Rome was the only earthly government which at that time could be symbolized in prophecy. For this very reason that its dominion was universal. It is not therefore without the most conclusive reason that and here's the key, the Roman Empire is considered by Protestant commentators generally to be the power indicated by the great red dragon. What's your response to that?
Haven't we made a living doing it?
Say that again.
Haven't we made a living calling on Catholic Church and Catholicism as bad? I was thinking that was probably a bad strategy.
Yeah.
Church made a living, so to speak.
In a way, yeah.
There were no Catholics at the time.
Catholicism
was not born.
True. True. This was pagan, the time of pagan Rome, and then when the Roman Empire was overturned, it was succeeded by papal Rome. It controlled most of Europe, or all of Europe, I guess. Let's move on. So we've already been talking about this. Let's see if I had anything else here. We did this. What about the sun? Who's the sun? Okay. Jesus. By the way, this music stand crashes to the bottom, so I came up with this genius idea of putting a chair there. Keep it from going down to my ankles. So in the passage that Kelly read, it talked about the woman standing on the moon, but engulfed by the sun. And this Uriah Smith, I actually found Uriah Smith's commentary pretty helpful this time. Sometimes it's not. I liked it for this lesson. The woman, the church, had the moon under her feet. That is the Mosaic dispensation, or the Old Testament covenant that had just ended, and the woman clothed in the light of the gospel sun, which had just risen. Christ had just ascended. By this figure, the church is represented as fully organized with 12 apostles, and it was thus to be constituted immediately after Christ should commence his ministry. And then right after that, it says that the dragon attempted to devour the child, What does the passage say happened to the child?
Taken to heaven.
I think the word snatched is in there, snatched and taken to the throne of God, which is represented the upper part of this image.
Yes, the interesting thing is that all Jews at that time were looking for the Savior, the Messiah.
Right?
The devil was also equally anticipating the devil. He put those ideas in Herod's mind to kill the kids and so forth. But there was equal desire to find that child that would grow to be the Messiah on both the devil and on the Jewish nation.
Exactly right. We've already answered this one. This is interesting. This is from Uriah Smith again. The first 6 verses of this chapter, which we've been looking at now, as has been seen, take us down to the close of the 1260 years, which marked the end of papal supremacy. Wait a second, did I jump ahead? No, there we go. And this, I found this quote up by Googling, this is from our own church's ministry magazine. Seventh Adventists have generally approached attached prophetic significance to the date February 15, 1798, when the Pope was, Pius VI was deposed, bringing an end to the papal reign in Rome, in Europe. Napoleon and his Republican and anti-papal ardor. Any other thoughts about the first 6 verses?
Well, like Dad Reiner said, we've spent a lot of time about the Roman part. But we also just said that the woman was for God's church. And it says in verse 5 that this child was for all nations. So I think we make a mistake as an Adventist church on isolating ourselves from other
Faith
Yeah,
bodies.
We've made a mistake.
Well, when we were kids, before your age, even, the idea was Seventh Adventist Church is the remnant. And that thinking is not helpful
No.
because it's exclusionary. Terry, were you gonna make a comment? Or flinch?
No, I didn't. Oh, yeah, I was just scratching, but
Oh,
I'll scratch up something here.
no.
I was remembering my childhood growing up in Adventist church.
Yes.
The big kick was, this Revelation 14:12, here they keep the commandments of God, which meant the Sabbath.
Right. Exactly.
And if you grew up like I did on that church, we kept hearing we weren't doing enough. If there are pagans lost because we didn't work hard enough, their blood was on us.
Yeah.
And we got to get out and get the word out. And cover Saturday afternoon.
Every nation, kindred, tongue, and people.
And it wasn't so much bringing them to Christ as teaching about the Sabbath. Okay, getting the Sabbath out. I take it Revelation 14:12. We relied on that a lot. And that's when Jesus spirit of prophecy about the light. That's it, period. Without looking at the bigger picture. Whereas I see it as spirit of testimony of Jesus, spirit of Jesus, real intimacy. Intimacy plus reliability. Keep the commandments. In other words, this person, this spiritual wife, you can trust her. You don't need to worry about her when you're gone. You can trust her. She's committed. But the church I grew up in was a very committed wife, but it wasn't much fun. So, but we kept hearing we weren't committed enough, and it was just working it more and more. Works one side, one side. And if people start talking about love and Jesus, say, "Oh no, that's too much wishy-washy stuff." So I suppose most of us work our way through some of these past things. And when it came to my attention that Jesus is simply looking for a trustworthy and intimate wife that he can stand to live with forever. It changes the whole much thing. It's not so structured and this person, that person. He's desperately looking for a group of people he can trust and he'll enjoy living with forever.
Right, right. You know, sometimes we beat up the church a little bit here in this class. Those of us that are of an older generation saying, well, the church we grew in was this and that and the other. To me, the encouraging thing is how it's evolved. I think the understanding what you've been talking about this morning is part of that evolution, and to me it's a much more attractive. Oleg, and then sure.
Yeah, so it's interesting because you mentioned the word dispensationalism a couple of
Yes.
times. Yeah. So it's a tradition that evolved in the 19th century. In the United States, Europe didn't actually miss that point completely, because tradition says that, okay, so in the Old Testament, the church was Israel, and the New Testament, the church continuation of the church is now, so the Church of Israel, we kind of forget about it, but now we move into this new type of church.
Mhm.
But the reality is, if you look at through biblical perspective, people of God is just people of God.
That's right.
In spite of, so because dispensation, the problem with dispensationalism is what we do, we say we still exclude, just like Jews excluded nations. Now we church exclude the other group.
Mhm.
Because in the Bible, New Testament is one of the primary goals of the New Testament is reconciliation. You Jews think that they will not be accepted, and that's why even the message to 7 churches, the message to 7 churches about the nations, that nations are also included. And God loves them so much. Church, you think that you're the only one? Oh no! Let me tell you, your mission is to make sure that everyone receives the seal of God.
Mhm.
And everyone is saying, hallelujah, look, he's coming on the clouds. Everyone. That's why it's not about us, the 7 churches. It's about this seal of God to all nations.
Good. Carrie, and then Arthur.
Well, I was going to say something similar to what Oleg said, is that it's interesting that some of us see when it says the church, meaning our church, because I think it means the people of God. It's more than just church. It's more than the universal church, because of it included, God's people in the, pre-Christ times, the Jewish people. But when I was 15, I earned my scholarship to Academy by colporteur.
Good for you.
God, as I met people, I found people of God in all sorts of households, all sorts of faiths, and God impressed me. It's not just one way of looking at things, God, the Spirit works in all sorts of different mindsets. And I think that helped me, that formed a basis of me being a chaplain and accepting people from all different.
Nice. Arthur,
Do you think we make the thing very complicated?
probably.
I mean,
Is that a duh?
saved by grace through faith.
Right.
It's all about faith.
Mhm.
The covenant God makes with faith for all nations. I can't understand this. I have to say the marriage and the divorce and as we go through church history, because he makes it clear. I think it's in Genesis 15, the covenant he makes with Abraham. He says, look, I'll take this walk and you don't have to take the walk. I take this walk and I will give you the promise. I'll take the hit for you because of your faith. It's all about faith.
Joseph.
I think this is I'm curious. I am curious. How do other churches look at this? So me growing up as a Catholic, we ignored it. We said this is something beyond our understanding, so let's not worry about it. The scholars in the room, do you know how the Baptists and the Lutherans and others do they wrestle with this the way we wrestle with it? Or do they do like the Catholic Church? It's beyond our understanding.
Are Breck and Linda online?
I don't think so.
I'm just curious.
Well, I'm gonna
Answer some of it.
let me do this first, then we'll do you. So Breck White was a Methodist when he married Linda, and they're regular members of this class, but they're heading to South Carolina for the summer, North Carolina for the summer. And he said, when he talked to his pastor about it, his Methodist pastor said, "Oh, Revelation is the Jurassic Park of the Bible. We don't talk about it."
Right.
Same thing in the Lutheran Church.
Lutheran.
Both of those.
Right?
Our Church of Turkey, and none of them deal with it.
Just don't flat out don't deal with it.
You know, just like that, I lost my thought.
Not only Elmer did that. That happens to me all the time.
I think that happens to me all the time.
You're not alone.
But I was gonna say, I think as a culture, this is our style. We're into education, we're into study. It's
Uh-huh.
all, I mean, this is just kind of who we are. It's part of our DNA. So I don't know that all denominations are the same style. Our personality is a little different.
It's only us that make a lot of much to do about nothing.
I don't know.
Why? I just thought of a thought. So why did God give John the visions in Revelation?
Yes.
Yeah, that was purpose there. It wasn't just Jurassic Park.
Yeah, there is a reason why Revelation takes so much space in the Bible. Right? And there's a reason why it says it is the revelation of Jesus Christ. We don't have issues with the interpretation or the prior interpretation of Revelation by some of our forefathers. And again, I used to be really down on that, but you have to look at perspective. The century that they were raised, they were trying to raise the church from nothing. There's never been a church, there's never been a country person without a common enemy. You always need a common enemy to form something. And the Catholics were the enemy, which catalyzed and strengthened the church and its growth. It's very difficult to build an organization on simplicity. Very difficult to build an organization just based on simplicity. So, we can talk all we want about Seventh Day Adventist Church. I'll be the first one. I think we need remedial therapy for SDX just to get them through the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s. But then again, let's not focus on that. How about focusing on Christ? How about focusing on what Christ is trying to teach us in Revelation?
Hang on a second, we got hands everywhere. You regained your thought?
When I was younger, years ago, I read all of the Left Behind series, which was written
Well, hey.
an evangelical about Revelation. And what struck me is how extremely literally they took everything. When you talk about the two witnesses, there's going to be two guys standing in Israel or Rome. It's been years, but anyway, it's very, very literal. And the other thing is that it emphasizes extremely the rapture, which so far we haven't even encountered in Revelation. I think that comes from Jesus's Matthew 24 on the hill, where he talked about there'll be one taken and one left behind, which is where the series title came from. So the evangelicals that I know, and I used to sing in the National Christian Choir, and there was 40 different denominations represented. I always opened my eyes during prayer to see what people were doing. The evangelicals as a group, Revelation exceedingly differently than we do. We don't consider the rapture as taught in Revelation, and yet that's a key component.
I apologize to everyone for borrow.
Harry, you had your hand up a minute ago. What's the thought? I don't know what's worth much. Well, it passed you too. Good.
Thank you. Obviously, the Bible, as God laid it out, is for everybody, universal, but he does choose wives to be his agent of evangelism. As Israel, they were supposed to go evangelize the world. In fact, they tracked everyone to Jerusalem. Why? So they could be evangelized. Okay. In the New Testament, we have more of a go evangelism, and it's the Jew first and also the Greek and all those who believe. So yeah, the universalism is there, but God chooses different symbols. Coming to Revelation now. Revelation is where most of the spin-off goofy groups start. Adventism. Been around long enough to deal with a lot of them. They have a special understanding of this passage, that passage, this passage. And it's forced me to step back and say, what does, like Daniel Revelation, what's the value of these? I've come to the conclusion, the value is not in being able to predict, but it's to look back and see that God was in charge and knew his way was being unfolded. I think it's more of a confirmation of faith. Now, the only prediction I see in Revelation that makes sense to me is, as some of you know, Dr. Ernie Bursey.
Oh, yeah.
Taught on this, and
It's just here once in a while.
his insight. I even accept him as a brother-in-law, but but he straightens me out. He said Revelation is basically telling the people of the first century, you may not understand all this, but it means that God will be victorious.
Amen.
God's in control. He will win in the end.
Victorious, and that's the message.
We've always said that.
Well, is this that? Is this that? Just it's the bottom line is he's gonna be victorious.
All right, Santiago, then we're gonna move on.
This is slightly different, but I talked to many pastors that I used to before come to hear this church. Talked about why it's the 10 commandments, so the fourth commandment. So we cannot do that because that was then Sabbath is anything, any day you can make it is a Sabbath. Anything is a rest day. It doesn't matter Sabbath, or Monday, Tuesday, doesn't matter. And if we put it Saturday to worship God, then all the members will go away. So we will lose the church.
Mhm.
So what the purpose we're doing fine. We are church and all this sort of thing. So I'm looking at this monetary purpose,
Monetary.
right? Because
So what they were telling you is if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
yeah,
We got the offerings are coming in and we're worshiping on Sunday. Okay, all right. Juan, is there yet one more? Or you're absolutely the last. We're gonna move on.
Along with what they're saying, you know, we are also one, not to add to, take away. And so Erica was saying that we like to study.
Right.
over it, but we need have to be careful that we don't already believe something and then try to make it be.
Make the word fit our beliefs as a
Right, right.
Nicely put. Good way to wrap this section up. Let's go on and talk about the part 2, War in Heaven. Sherry, you're gonna read this for us. Nice and loud.
Then there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon and his angels. And the dragon lost the battle. And he and his angels were forced out of heaven. This great dragon, the ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, the one deceiving the whole world, was thrown down to the earth with all his angels. Then I heard a loud voice shouting across the heavens. It has come at last, salvation and power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ. For the accuser of our brothers and sisters has been thrown down to the earth, the one who accuses them before our God day and night.
All right. So where does this war in heaven occur? Okay. Third heaven. Yeah, I read that in some of the commentaries. You're gonna have to explain that to me because
You know what it is.
Yeah. It's on earth, right? This battle takes place on earth. No, I'm sorry.
No, it's in heaven.
This is the
Yeah.
third heaven, yeah.
Birds in one heaven,
Hit it.
flesh, second heaven. Heaven, third.
So my hand's raised.
Somebody online want to speak? Make a comment?
I just muted him. He does have his hand raised though.
All right. Go ahead, online, please.
Speak. I think that, you know, we've talked about churches that ignore Revelation and say it's the Jurassic Park or it's not important. But that passage that we just read about the fall of Satan, the war in heaven, that to me is absolutely essential piece of information to understand what's going on in the world. And we so many Christians don't, and that's why they write books about why bad things happen to good people. And it's all blamed on God. See, that's an essential piece of information that helps us understand the whole great controversy. So if we ignore Revelation, we don't get that. And that's all I want to say.
Thanks, Linda. Appreciate that. Yeah, this is, I got a slide here where I got the three levels of this. So maybe I'll just wait till I get to that slide to talk about it. Read the last two verses here. Sure.
And they have defeated him by the blood of the Lamb and by their testimony. They did not love their lives so much that they were afraid to die. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who live in the heavens, rejoice. But terror will come on the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you in great anger, knowing that he has little time.
Okay. Let's answer to this question. Is it there? Is it there? Multiple choice question. 33% chance of getting it right. No, I mean, Eugene.
I was just saying number one.
Oh, you're voting for number one. All right. Yeah, this war is Lucifer's original sin. It is not the war. The war comes a little bit later, but this is when, in Ellen White, I think I've got this quote right here. Yeah. In Selected Messages, there was war in heaven, and Satan and all who sympathized with him were cast out. So that was with the original sin. The pride of Lucifer. John.
I wonder if anybody in this room sometimes gets angry at the thought of here we were created to be in this beautiful earth, and all of a sudden nobody wants the devil, right? Anywhere in the universe, and then we get stuck with them for years and makes our lives terribly uncomfortable and painful. I mean, doesn't that anger you sometimes? It angers me.
Yeah, Brett and I had that conversation this week, didn't we? I got something in here that addressed it. Maybe somewhere I've got it. I'm gonna read something that pertains to that. So there was war in heaven, and Lucifer was cast out. It was cast down to this earth, and like John said, why us? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the original sin, and you really can't explain it, but I as I'm looking at it and stuff, it has to do with freedom of choice. Because in talking with our kids and stuff, it seemed like that God could have done other things. He could have started over. Nobody would know. And there are other things that, he could have done to not have to go through all of this. But it seems like one of the accusations Satan had of God is a tyrant. And love was not going to allow God to use those other options. So freedom of choice seems to be the reason why we have to go through this, so that sin doesn't happen, continue to happen. And we do it when we choose to, not if we're forced to, or God changes things to make it right.
Yeah, you have a real challenge presenting these concepts to 14 to 18-year-olds.
Yes.
When you and I took classes like that from teachers like Eugene, all we did was look at dates.
Yeah.
Look at numbers. We didn't really understand. I like what was said about this basically is faith. The faith that we have a way out of this. It takes a lot of faith when you're down and out, but that's what keeps you going. And so I don't know what Eugene can do differently, because I'm sure he requires the 1260 and the 58, all of the numbers and the dates and why the Pope, and it's all these things, but yet the basic understanding, which is it's all based on faith.
Faith is not an easy road. Very
Right.
But data is part of that.
Sorry?
Have information.
Yeah.
Is part of it.
Decades ago, we made too much of the dates and the timelines, and we lost the faith and the joy.
Just kind of like a fun board game. I've got all those drawings in my junior year Bible. It was just kind of like a fun thing to do. I don't know what it's like really. Everybody's got that, I think.
Right, Terry.
This Satan thing, which we all get upset that we ended up with him. But I think as this gentleman is pointing out, we all know about the great controversy in Christ and Satan, the concept. Well, so Satan's making accusations against Christ before there was war. And you mentioned it well. He's a tyrant, so forth and so on. And ultimately, he convinces several angels to join him up, and they try to take over heaven. I don't see God kicking him out, as Satan tried to take over heaven. And so that's how it ended. They got kicked out. So, why didn't he eliminate Satan? Well, angels that didn't follow Satan still have a mind. They're going, what if we trip up a little bit? We're zapped, man. We're out of here. So we trust him out of love. We trust him out of fear. It all comes down to those kinds of things. And when I've had to discuss these things, I say, let's talk about your children. You have 2 children. One of them goes really rogue. A boy. Goes wrong. He's still in the house at 35. Okay. Still in the basement. You have a young daughter late in life. He's accosting your daughter. Okay. Now, do you kick the son out, or you ask, find a way to change it? And the son is rebellious. He said, no, hey, I'm actually doing my sister a favor. All that kind of stuff. So you cry when you kick him out, but if you leave him, it's worse. Because the girl that stays has to believe that she can trust her parents. And if she ever makes a mistake, she's not going to get kicked out. She can repent, and she can. So you get it down to a personal level to where those who haven't fallen are still thinking and processing, is God all he says he is? Because Satan made some bad accusations.
You obviously have a third movies. It's a lot more than basements.
The nature
It was just a lot more stage.
Yes, of course.
Arthur.
The nature of God is love. Love is not love until there's a choice. And I think with God is, if you squeeze and squeeze and squeeze, everything that comes out is love. To the very end, all love. It's total love. That means choice. If you're in a relationship and you don't allow the choice. If you're forcing someone to have a relationship with you, that is consistent with love.
And Ole.
I'll tell you what this language meant to me, and why it gives me faith in love divine. When it talks about the accuser of the brethren was cast out, he's not there anymore to accuse us. This reminds me of the parable, of the story in the Gospels about the woman taken in adultery, where, Jesus, after writing in the sand, the accusers all left. And he says, woman, where are your accusers? She said, there aren't any. And he says, I don't accuse you. The accuser now is down here, and he accuses us to ourselves. And we feel guilt.
Gets inside our head.
And what we have to do is exercise faith in the Messiah, who said to this woman, I don't accuse you either. I mean, if we just accept that, and to me, I can take any of this stuff if I know that Christ wins and he loves me and forgives me, and I'm going to be with him. So
there you go. In a nutshell. Ole.
Yeah, I really appreciate, Loran, what you did in the very beginning. You took us back to Revelation chapter 3. And that is not an excellent.
Genesis.
Sorry, Genesis chapter 3. That's right. Sorry. Yeah, Revelation, and then Genesis chapter 3, which is the first book of the Bible and the last book of the Bible, bookmarks. And what was very critical for John's mind as well, like why the language is so similar to Genesis chapter 3. Here's a dragon, here's a serpent, here's a serpent accusing the woman, deception. Here's a deception. And then here's another person who is Adam, who makes a choice now to receive that fruit and so forth. So But what is very critical in this whole narrative is that the book of Revelation demonstrates how we are going back to the Garden of Eden, because this is where we emerged from. And our young adults, this is the greatest representation that we could possibly think about. This is what we do, actually. Dates are irrelevant based on Revelation chapter 22, last verses, because it says anybody who adds or removes anything from the book of Revelation, they will not even take share from the tree of life. So if we want to participate in the tree of life, let's explore the Bible with the Bible. Here is the book of Genesis. The enmity is there, but the book of Revelation restores. And the war is a never-ending war, but the victory is there.
So nice, but thank you. So I was thinking about this. We got home from Tennessee around noon on Monday, and I was sitting in my recliner and had a fan on me because I was sweating a little hot, and it blew the teaching schedule on the floor, and I picked it up, looked at it. I thought, I told Loran, says, when do you teach? I said, I think it's July. He picked it up and said June 10, Loran. So I said, whoa. So anyway, plenty of time. So I was thinking about this lesson.
Luann only sends it out every week, Lawrence.
I know.
You're excused.
Yeah, but if I waited till her email, it would have been like Wednesday night, then I would have been swear. So I thought that it might be helpful for my own thinking to develop a timeline from the time of Lucifer's fall through all the stages of the war against God. And this is what I came up with. It may not be totally accurate, and for the theologians in the room can help me out. But first there was original sin in heaven, right? Right. I want to be like the Most High. Then the first war that we read about occurred, and Satan was expelled from heaven. However, we know from the first 2 chapters of Job that he was still allowed to come and go to attend the heavenly council, and he wasn't permanently kicked out of heaven. And that was described as war by Ellen White. I think we read that, or maybe in the next slide. Then we have Christ's birth, the first advent. And Satan immediately set out to say, okay, this is God's son. This is the Messiah. I've got to do everything in my power to stop him. And the first attempt was the killing of all the infants in Bethlehem. Then when Jesus actually came at his advent, he was tempted in the wilderness by Satan. They attempting to get him to fall, and then ultimately the crucifixion, and then Christ's ascension back into heaven after his resurrection. Next thing that came to me was war in heaven, which is described in the passage we're studying right now. And at this time, Satan was permanently expelled from heaven. This war when he was permanently expelled. Then there was the time of the end, the second advent of Christ. And there we'll read in future, won't steal any of my colleagues' thunder, but Satan is confined to a bottomless fiery pit for 1,000 years. Then Satan is released briefly. He gathers the nation, and there's the battle described in wherever it is, Revelation 20, I think. Battle of Armageddon. And the wicked humans that are there with Satan are destroyed by fire from heaven. Satan himself is cast into a burning lake of fire, and Revelation 20 says he will be tormented forever and ever.
You mean he's not destroyed? I mean, it doesn't matter really, but I wonder.
Well, I don't know how you can survive in the Lake Elizabeth.
Yeah, can't that forever and ever. I've also read that it's means permanent. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what it is. As an Adventist or general belief or God, that is whatever the word is, and more like it's permanently.
They used to share.
Harry, hands everywhere. All the theologians got their hands up. Harry, Eugene, and I know you, but I can't remember your name.
Let the better theologians go after.
No, you go, Terry.
The word forever, eternal, has many applications in the Bible. None of them, I shouldn't say none of them, they don't all mean never ending. That's what we think of it. For example, a servant in Old Testament, if he wanted to serve in the household for the rest of his life, they'd put his earlobe up against the doorpost and all through it. That meant he would serve that household forever. That was a term used, forever. And we also talk about the wicked will be asher. So forever is a contextual phrase. It could be until it ends. Okay, and it means it will never be reversed. I think that's the most important. Forever, it burns forever and ever means it never be reversed until it does its work. And
Okay, that's helpful.
The torment could be a level of anguish that he will experience as opposed to never ending. That his anguish will be, or his torment will be more than anybody else. And I'm not sure exactly why that would be. Maybe it's what could have been.
Mhm.
He's clear to who God is, and even he will concede that God has been good and just. And the anguish could be in part that what might have been. Yeah.
Um,
I want to circle on something that he said, why God choose Satan here and it bothered him. On the early writings on page 39 and 40, Ellen G. White writes, and I'm going to skip some stuff here, but when you get a chance, you can go home. The Lord has given me a view of other worlds. The inhabitants of the place were all sizes. They were noble, majestic, and lovely. They bore the express image of Jesus, and the contentious beam with holy joy, express of freedom and happiness of the place. I asked one of them why they were so much more lovely than those on the earth. The reply was, we have lived in strict obedience to the commandments of God and have not fallen by disobedience like those on the earth. That's on page 39 and 40.
early writings.
Yeah, but isn't it when we're going to heaven, we're going to be better than them? Ellen G. White says that we're actually going to be serving God and being in the temple.
That applies only to Hispanics.
Be by the throne, so there.
actually, I agree with him. I agree with him.
It's going to be different.
I'll give you an example why. My dad was in World War II in Germany. They had reunions after the war. My mom said, your dad and the buddies that were under his command love him in a way that I do not understand. It's because they developed a relationship under fire. And when the symbolic of 144,000, I think it's symbolic, it's because they are closer to God for no other reason except they experience some of the torment that Jesus experienced. They were in the trenches under fire, which is the unfallen world's only observed.
Amen to that.
What name have is historically given to this timeline of events that I just can't find a minute? What do we call this? Right? Controversy between Christ and Satan, good and evil. It's one of our fundamental beliefs. I'm not going to read this, but this is fundamental belief number 8. All humanity is now involved in a controversy between Christ and Satan regarding the character of his law, of God, his law, and his sovereignty over the universe. One of our fundamental beliefs. What was the nature of the war in heaven? Was it this? Or this? Or this? Was it hand-to-hand combat with spear, sword, and shield? Was it this? I just threw this in for you. Or was it this? We're going to skip the third part because time is gone, and I'm going to, oh, here it is. I want to play a video. As I was preparing the last 4 days to teach the lesson, and thinking about the themes of Revelation 12, a song that Bill and Gloria Gaither wrote kept coming to my mind. It is finished. The battle is over. It is finished. There will be no more war. It is finished, the end of the conflict. It is finished, and Jesus is Lord. About 4 years ago, Loretta and I and 3 other couples from this class went to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and stayed at a hotel near the Convention Center in Pigeon Forge. And we attended the, the National Quartet Convention, NQC. A lot of white-haired old people like us. Wasn't a lot of young people there. In the year before we were there, the Gaither Vocal Band had sung this song that I'm going to show you. We're going to play for you. And when Bill in the very beginning walks on the stage and he says, "Hello, NQC," that's National Quartet Convention. So that's the setting. All right. We're going to switch to that computer. So it's here. It is finished.
I can't hear you in QC. Do you believe it? I would not give you a dime for theology that does not have a transformational element in it. Thank God for the cross. Thank God for the blood. And thank God for the work on Calvary, that tonight we can sing and live and breathe in freedom. You see, there's a line that's been drawn down through the ages. Gloria and I wrote this about 40 years ago. And on that line stands an old rugged cross. On that cross, a battle is raging. To gain a man's soul or his loss. On one side march all the forces of evil, all the demons, and all the devils of hell. Oh, but on the other, my friend, the angels of glory, and they meet on Golgotha's hill.
The earth shakes with the force of the conflict, and the sun, it refuses to shine. For there hangs God's Son in the balance, and then through the darkness he cried, "It's finished, the battle is over. It's finished, there'll be no more. It is finished, the end of the conflict. It is finished, and Jesus is Lord." Yet in my heart, the battle was still raging. Not all prisoners of war had come home. You see, these were battlefields of the making. You see, I didn't know that the war had been won. But then I heard that the kingdom
Nothing more to be said after that. Have a great Sabbath. I think somebody said it, battle is over.
Yes.
We just have to accept it by faith. And if we do, we can have absolute assurance of salvation. You just leave the class today with that thought.